Grazie. Okay, if you bear with me, I want to try a tiny bit of Italian, and I apologize in advance. Okay. Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. 1 second. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here to this event. I am honored to be here. And that's about it, I think. Thank you.
So I'm here to tell you, go back actually. I'm here to tell you a little bit about social innovation in Canada via Mars. And if you work at a place called Mars, there's lots of jokes about being a favorite Martian and all other things. But the first thing I want to do is invite you all to Mars. So what's wrong with that? Mars is actually a nonprofit organization that was set up to take advantage of both the economic and social impact of Canadian innovation. Our history is that we were in an old building that was once the Toronto General Hospital. A beautiful old building, like this beautiful old building, and it was being merged with a bunch of other hospitals. And so they were going to sell it because it was very old and it would take a lot to renovate. And this guy in the bottom corner, the tall one, is a guy called John Evans. And Dr. John Evans was on the board of this new merged hospital. And I put a picture of him up there with Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin was the second man to walk in the moon, just to stay with the theme here. But John said, you know, what do you want to do with this old building? And they said, well, we're going to turn it into condominiums. And if you've been to Toronto, you will know the one thing we don't need is condominiums. But they could make a lot of money, and the board was trying to be financially responsible, so they said, that's what we're going to do. And John said, excuse me, the first clinical trials for insulin were held in this building. We can do better than that. And so he came up with the concept of convergence innovation. So this is based on the premise that innovation happens everywhere, but accelerates on the margins. How do you bring together intellectual property lawyers, entrepreneurs, social workers, scientists, researchers, and put them all in one building so they can actually take their divergent learning, their divergent training, their divergent thinking, and converge into a place that creates innovation. Physical location is very important. We are on the subway line, which is in a big city, critical. We are across the street from Queen's Park, which is our provincial order of government. And this adjacency to government is critical. Across the street the other way is the University of Toronto, our largest academic institution. And we're a few blocks away from Bay Street, which is where all the money is, where all the banks are headquartered. And we're situated in a creative cluster of museums and artists. And the reason this is so important is that we want this place to be welcome to all, but not owned by any. So we want to set the table. We want everyone to understand we are rooted in community. All are welcome, but none own it in such a way that they can elbow others out. Let's talk about how we set our strategic priorities. First of all, we see social innovation as a cross-cutting theme. We believe we need to create and keep our talent. When you live in Canada and you're very talented and you want to make money, you get drawn to the United States very quickly. So how do we keep talent in Canada? And then how do we attract new talent there? We work with ventures. We call them high-impact ventures in the area of technology, health, and clean tech. And then we understand at some point they face a systems challenge. What are we going to do to look at the systems level for how to address those issues? And so we've set up things like a solutions lab, a safe place to tackle complex challenges, a center for impact investing, which talks about how we can finance social purpose work differently, and Data Catalyst, which is a place to consider what we can do with open data to make it more impactful. And it sits on a platform of real estate, which is now at about 1.5 million square feet. So it's a very big center. I'm also part of something called SIG, or Social Innovation Generation. This is a program consisting of 4 nodes across the country, started with a philanthropist, a foundation. They were supporting lots of organizations doing good, but they wanted to do good better. So what they did was form this group. They had an RFP for an academic partner, and the University of Waterloo won that. They had an RFP for a practitioner. We got someone working in the area of disability. And then they approached Mars to see if we could do a better job of integrating social innovation into the mainstream innovation agenda. Those were 4 very different cultures trying to work together. And so we hired an executive director to figure out how the sum could be greater than each of the parts. And the role of SIG is to figure out how Canada can create a culture of continuous social innovation. Definitions are hard, and you've heard lots of people talk about that already. What I think it's important to do is state your definition, the one that you're understanding, so that others can at least know where you're coming from. We talk about initiative, products, or processes that profoundly change beliefs, basic routines, resources, and authority flows in the direction of greater resilience. Resilience is core to what we do. We also believe that successful social innovations have durability, have impact, and have scale. So I'm not saying that you have to use this definition, but I am saying that you should pick one that works for you and state it out front, because people will have very different conceptions about what this is. When I talk about social innovation, particularly to folks who are brand new to it, their eyes glaze over. And so what I say is, look on the right side of this slide. When I'm talking to Canadian audiences, you are about social innovation. When you think about peacekeeping, in the early 1950s, our former Prime Minister won a Nobel Prize for peacekeeping for the work in the Suez Canal. We do not have a big army. We are never going to have a big army, but we've positioned ourselves as peacekeepers. That was absolutely, in its day, a social innovation. The Women's Institute. So when I was in school, I studied women's studies. But I did not know until I read a book from Jeff Mulgan, who was then at the Young Foundation, of the top 100 social innovations of all time, that the forerunner to the modern day women's movement was started around the corner from me. How do I know that? Because Canadians do not think about themselves in this way. They certainly don't brag, it's really not what we do, but it's really important for us to understand this history. I love what Simon just said, you need to understand your history, and this should be part of how we identify ourselves. And the last one is Medicare. Canadians are very proud of our universal health care. How is that not a social innovation? These are not scary things, these are not new things, these are who we are. And in Torino, I understand the birth of the slow food movement was here, that goes around the world. How proud am I of you guys, right? I mean, wonderful to have this slow food movement. This is who you are, Torino. This is not new, this is not scary, this is you. When I talk about whether or not we're sector agnostic, and Lisa talked about the pains that she had with the not-for-profit, for-profit dichotomy, I agree with her. It is important to be sector agnostic. So we work on one side with charities who were traditionally grant dependent. We work on the other side with corporations who said, social, I create jobs, what do you want from me? We put pressure on both ends of that spectrum, and we're very excited about the messy middle, getting people to think about both their economic and social impact. And here's the secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. The secret is, this is what everybody wants to do. Because even if you work in a corporation, or even if you work in a nonprofit, you know you have to have single bottom lines is not enough. You have to have double or triple bottom lines. You know that you're not only a professional, but you're also a mother or a sister or a daughter. You want to bring your whole self to the work. This is what people want to do, and social innovation is an opportunity to allow people to do that. I'm going to tell you a quick story about 2 social enterprises in Toronto on the not-for-profit side that are doing community revitalization. One is called Artscape. This guy started off planting trees in playgrounds. He wanted to green schools. That's what he started to do. But he had an opportunity to take the old Brickworks factory, which was a factory in Toronto where all our bricks were made, and completely renovate it. Now it's a wonderful place where we celebrate events and food and markets and work on environmental issues. He made over $11 million from his social enterprises last year. This is not a small scale. And one of the things he does by being rooted in community is he created a community skating rink. And I'm not going to come to Torino and not make at least one hockey reference, so there you go, there it is. The second thing is called Artscape, and Artscape renovates places like schools because the demographic shift, the same as here, is we have less children and more older people. So what they've done is they've taken a school that would be closed down and they've turned it into an artist live workspace. What happens in a community that's run down is normally an artist would move in, then because the artists are there, other people move in, and then the rents go up and the artists have to leave. This is unacceptable. So this is a nonprofit developer that works with for-profits, works with artists to create new communities so artists can actually stay in the communities they want to live in. And of course, they revitalize the community and don't have to leave. Now on the for-profit side, this is my favorite story. We had these young men who were animators, and they came into Mars to meet with the technology group. And they said, we have this great technology, and we are looking to be bought out by Disney or Pixar. Can you help us? But because we look at things through both a social and economic impact lens, we said to them, well, what's really going on here? Are you like creating avatars? Yep. Well, what school kids like this? Well, what do you mean? Well, I don't really know, but let's go talk to some teachers. So we talked to some teachers, and they said, yeah, we'll give it a try. We'll try it in one classroom. Almost right away, the students started to use it to tell stories of being bullied. Why? Because it's non-threatening. They never told teachers, they never told their friends, they never told their parents, but they could draw little pictures because that was a way for them to express themselves. So the teacher said, okay, we're on to something. And the Toronto School Board bought a license for every student, and they have these massive anti-bullying competitions right across the system. It has been so successful that now the province of Ontario has bought a similar license. And not only are kids telling stories around bullying, for some marginalized or excluded kids, they can now see that literacy rates are beginning to improve. Who knew? These were animators that thought only about the big buyout. But now, what I've done, and why it's been successful for Mars, is now they've said, she's actually useful to us on the money side because she's opened up a whole new market opportunity for our clients. And because we're also fathers and sons, etc., she's helping the kids. And so this is why this integration of social innovation alongside the technology offers whole new ways of thinking and creating these illustrious win-win scenarios. We try to leverage all of the resources of Mars. They're the ones, the technology folks have the money. They have the resources. They have access to market intelligence. They have access to pro bono legal work. They have access to mentors. And so now, all of the social entrepreneurs have the same kind of situation. And while we're doing this, we always stay true to being rooted in community. So how do we open up this great space, this architectural wonder that I'm hoping you'll do here through open house events? And we host citizenships. So people come and they become Canadian citizens in Mars where they're linked up to these great leaders. And of course, I had to show a Mountie because I'm being really cheesy, but there you go. We also leverage off all the, am I running out of time? Okay, I'll talk, I can't talk any faster. But in terms of the entrepreneurship, same kind of thing. We hold Entrepreneurship 101, which is free, and it's available to about 400 entrepreneurs who come every week to learn about how to write a business plan, understanding marketing. But instead of doing social entrepreneurship off to the side, we've just integrated the program, so now people are exposed to both. We also try to bring wonderful global leaders to Mars, including people like in the bottom left. When we brought Jeff Mulgan, we had him not only speak, but go out into the community to meet with a rising politician who's now the Premier of Ontario. So it's important to bring these leaders and evolve community around them, and also to invite people to Canada to celebrate what's going on globally. There's a couple of really interesting global networks, the Social Enterprise World Forum and Social Innovation Exchange, that I'm hoping you guys are tapped into. We have the Solutions Lab, which I talked about, is a neutral place to tackle complex challenges, and Studio Y, which is our youth leadership program, developing talent to succeed in the new economy. We work a lot with governments, trying to get them to think cross-ministerially and to engage with the community and use social innovation to address poverty-related issues. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like Italy, we're on the G8 task force on impact investing. And if I had one piece of advice for you, would be to follow this task force on social finance approach. We followed the model of the UK in 2000. We did ours in 2010. And it was critical for getting people excited about impact investing, and it ended up being in the federal budget and in 3 provincial budgets as well. To close, I just want to say that we have launched the world's first B Corp, which is benefit corporation hubs outside of the US. And we have in Alberta, so in Western Canada, a very rich province because that's where the oil is. They have just announced a $1 billion, so what, 600,000 euros, fund for social innovation that came about because we had the Social Enterprise World Forum in Calgary and exposed the politicians to this way of thinking. They knew that we were onto something. So having these kinds of events, lots of diversity of people from philanthropy, from practitioners, from politicos is very, very important. This is all just the beginning for us, but the end of my presentation, and I thank you very much. Grazie.
Grazie Allyson. Mi raccomando, lei si aspetta.
Thank you, Allyson. Of course, she expects to be challenged by the public, so please be ready with your questions.